Hi, I'm Tim. This is my YouTube channel where I talk about things I like to do, including reading. And I just seen a book tag by the StoryTube channel, and I thought, let's just try it. Why not? It's the mid-year freakout tag. Wah! Um, yeah, it's just a bunch of questions about the first books you've read in the first half of the year, as we are approaching midway. So, first question is the favorite book of the year so far. For me, that's got to be, I think, The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. This is Welcome to the Kingdom, a dazzling fantasy theme park where happily ever is not just a promise but a rule. Um, this is like Disney princesses, but they're cyborgs, and it's a murder mystery, and it jumps back and forward in time. It plays with formats because half the chapters are like trial interview extracts, like interview descriptions. And it's just really cool. I loved this book. All the months are known as the December of the Hyacinth Macaw, 21 months before the trial. You know, you jump back in time. I just thought this was absolutely riveting. Um, it's Blade Runner meets Disney princesses. So yeah, has to be that. I think just completely blew me away. I read that in January. So next is the best sequel of the year that you've read. This one I'm going for Alana. In the Hand of the Goddess by Tamora Pierce. The second part of this one, which is the Song of the Lioness quartet. This I thought was the best one of the series, the second book, and it elevated the villain, it elevated the tension, the central tension of the story, and actually resolved that tension, which I think did hinder the later stories. But yeah, for me, it was this one. I read this. I can't remember when I read this. Uh, after I started this channel, because I remember doing a review on it. But yeah, I just thought In the Hand of the Goddess by Tamora Pierce. Next is the new release you haven't read yet, but you want to. I'm not a big new releases person because I've got a lot of books that I need to read anyway. But for this one, it has to be In the Shadow of the Wolf Queen by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Kieran is a friend, and I love all of her books. And this book is the first in a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy called Geomancer. And I think it's about earthquakes and stuff like that. But her writing, I think just when she writes fantasy, it's just amazing, and she's got such vivid imagination and use of language. Even if I didn't know her, I would guarantee buy her books every single time. So yeah, has to be In the Shadow of the Wolf Queen by Kieran Millwood Hargrave. Um, this one is the. It was meant to be like the most anticipated book this year that you want to read. Don't that comes out this year. I think that's pretty similar to the last question. I don't really do new releases, so this is the book that I really, really want to read this year, and it's the second book in the Legends of the Condor Heroes. It's called A Bond Undone by Jin Yong. So I read the first book, which is called A Hero Born, a few years ago. My brother bought it for me for my birthday, and I thought it was just the coolest thing in the world. So this was written in the 1950s, I want to say, in China, and but it's set kind of in the time of 59. It's set in the time of Kublai Khan and Genghis Khan, and it's like supposedly it's like kind of Chinese. It's the cultural impact of Star Wars and Lord of the Rings kind of thing, but on Chinese literature. But I read the first book. I thought it was so cool. I just thought it was all full of kung fu, and I've never read about kung fu before, but I just thought it was amazing. So yeah, I actually kind of got. I just kept looking in bookshops, and I was like, so I just had to buy. I bought the rest of them online from evil Amazon, but I did. Yeah, so that's the book I'm most anticipating to read this year. Um, the biggest disappointment I've read this year has to probably be How Animals Saved My Life by the super vet, Noel Fitzpatrick. My wife picked this up for me from the library. I like the super vet. I find him very engaging, not only just because the show is about cute animals, but also just how he approaches problem solving and his attitude toward medicine is quite interesting. But the book was very repetitive. Every chapter was the same, and there wasn't enough animals in it. it was all about his kind of philosophy, which is fine, but it just kind of hammered over your head chapter after chapter after chapter. So I actually didn't finish it in the end. I just was like, this is the same. Chapter 5 is the same as chapter 4, which is the same as chapter 3. I got about halfway through, I think, but I just was like, nah, I'm done with this. So that's my biggest disappointment. My biggest surprise has to be the D&D Dungeon Academy No Humans Allowed by Madeline Rue. This is certainly a surprise because my wife bought it for me and I didn't know. So one, that was a surprise. And secondly, I really enjoyed it. It's a book all about D&D monsters training to become monsters to fight adventurers. Thought it was really entertaining. Favorite new author? Question number 7. Favorite new author? I've gone with Tim Marshall, who wrote Prisoners of Geography. This is the book that I read this year. I thought it was really interesting. Made it, and he's got a whole load of non-fiction. His next one, he's got one that's about flags that I really want to read because I love flags. So yeah, Tim Marshall. Kind of whizzing through this now. Is my favorite new author. The next question is newest fictional crush. I don't do crushes. Not applicable. My favorite 9 favorite new character. So this one is from a book that's going to come up later on. I tried to have different questions, different answers for each one, but I read a book by Carrie Alwes called As You Wish: The Making of the Princess Bride, and Andre the Giant is hilarious and so interesting. There were so many. Most of the stories from the making of that film were about Andre the Giant, so I'm gonna say he's my favorite new character, even though he's a real person. Was a real person. Yeah. So because I just thought it's such an interesting life, a book that made you cry. I didn't really have anything. I don't really cry at books. A couple of things that I can think about would be one bit would be The End of the Prestige by Christopher Priest, which is here that I borrowed off my brother-in-law. It didn't make me cry, but it was very scary. It was really intense. And then there was the reveal in The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper that I've just read that actually made me gasp out loud. Yeah, so they're probably the closest because I don't really cry at books and I don't really read that kind of book. A book that made you happy, I am going to say As You Wish by Carrie Alwes, The Making of the Princess Bride. I love the book. It's probably my favourite film. I have really strong emotional ties to that film. And so reading about how it was made and how everybody on board just loved it so much. For none of them, it was just a job. And that I just really enjoyed that. The most beautiful book you either bought or was given to you this year. This, I think I got it for Christmas. But whatever, it's a beautiful cover. It's Almost There by Farah Rashon. It's a Twisted Tale novel. So this is the new art style of these books. And you can tell this is about, what is the what if? What if Tiana made a deal that changed everything? So I haven't read this yet. But you could see Tiana and you could see the shadow of Facilier. But it also is like the Bayou. This is the new art style compared to... Let me just get the old art style of one of them. Which is... give me a second. Let It Go. This is the one I've got. So that's like the old art style, which is nice. I quite like the black, but I think this is amazing. So that's what I've got for most beautiful book. And then the last one, let me just put that back, is books you have left to read in 2023. So I kind of, in terms of managing what books I want to read, I have goals. But they're always quite vague. And, I don't read a book because I want to read it or feel like I have to read it. So I've got different categories of books. So I want to read, more Twisted Tales. I want to read some more villains books. I want to read some books that I've borrowed from people. I want to read some books that I've borrowed from my wife. Some books from the library. Some gifts that I've received. But the one thing that I really, really want to read, I want to finish, is Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Because I started this in 2010 and I've only started reading it again this year, and I'm currently, because I've started reading it, I'm trying to read one volume at a time. There's 5 volumes, and I've just started volume 3. I've just read the first book of that, so I'm on page 741 out of 1200 odd. 1247. So yeah, I've got 500 pages to go, which is really depressing when you think about it. But it's also probably the most beautiful book in the world. Yeah, so you've got Cosette on the front, you've got the map of Paris, and then beautiful pages like that, and then gold, ooh, shiny. Yeah, so that is the book I am most wanting to read this year. The rest of them, I'm pretty up in the air about. Go to the library, see what comes out, all that kind of thing. So I'm not really a big fan of. I like having an idea on what I want to read and some categories on what I want to do to help bring variety in, but I don't want to make it feel like a chore. So yeah, that is my tag. Usually meant to tag other people in this, but I don't really know how that works because I'm very new to YouTube and I'm an idiot. So, but I did see this from the StoryTube guys, so I want to say thank you to them. Yeah. If you want to tag me in other videos, if you see this, please comment below on how you would answer these questions. I think it's interesting. And comment on what other videos you would like me to do. Like the video, subscribe, help do something to get it in the algorithm, because I think the only people who are currently watching this is currently me, just to make sure the video is uploaded correctly. But that's okay. That's okay. So, yeah. I'll see you later. Need to figure out an outro. Bye.